What do you mean?
in
How
the
do I
right
respond?
areas. They think,
When
okay, as long
Brian's
as
done
I'm
with the
rich,
surface level, I'm going
then
to get
I
right
could
to the
be
heart of
a
the
fat
argument,
guy
make her look stupid in
and
5
do all these
seconds.
other
Watch.
things and be ugly and
It's going to be
whatever.
real
Sorry,
bad, too.
Hold on, before I have Andrew come in, I think this trope is actually more applicable to women. This whole thing of, yeah, the basement dwelling obese man wants a Victoria's Secret model. Actually, I think it's the completely unremarkable average woman who is desirous of a man outside of her league. That's much more common.
You say that,
That's much more
but-
common than the man who's the basement dwelling, Cheeto dust, blah, 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 who's like, I need a Victoria's Secret model.
Women?
Here's why. Because men get slapped in the face with reality. If an average dude steps to a Victoria's Secret model, instant rejection. Whereas women, whereas the reversal, as a woman, if you step to a guy outside of your league, he might keep you around for a couple days, couple weeks, couple months, use you for sex, but you get rejected on the back end. So you might think, well, I was able to sleep with that guy. That's my league.
The issue here is mainly attraction, right? Men are more attracted to women as a whole, right? This is even if you're ugly, you'll probably find a guy, right? Most men, this doesn't apply for women, right? Most women are not attracted to most men just right off the bat unless they actually try to invest in their looks and such. And a lot of men don't do it.
What do you mean?
In
How
the
do I
right
respond?
Areas. They think,
When
okay, as long
Brian's
as
done
I'm
with the
rich,
surface level, I'm going to
then
get
I
right
could
to the
be
heart of
a
the
fat
argument,
guy
make her look stupid in
and
5
do all these
seconds.
other
Watch.
things and be ugly and
It's going to be
whatever.
real
Sorry,
bad,
fat.
too.
And so
I could just turn that back around on you and say, like, look at all these chubby, overweight women
Arguing
who
about
just
it the
think,
wrong
let
way.
me throw
I'll
on
have
some
sex with them
makeup.
anyway.
Let me throw on some makeup, spend all this money on makeup products instead of actually going to the gym. I think all that money you spend on makeup, go buy a gym membership and hit that shit hard. That'll make you way more attractive than painting your face.
I agree with that, but I just think that men are attracted to women more. So it's
I don't
like
really understand that.
a person
I don't
who's
either.
I don't
like
really get
a
what you're
fat-
saying.
let's say you consider this girl to be a 2 out of 10, right? And like she's very whatever. She'll still be able to find a guy, right? No problem. But a guy who doesn't put any effort into his looks will not be able to find a girl, right?
And
Because women care more about attraction and men will find anything. So men being attractive
I get what you're saying.
is more important
what you're saying.
than a woman being
I'm on to you.
attractive.
okay, so hypergamy is men's fault.
I think it's all men's fault.
Do you want to do a response, and then I'll let Andrew come in on this because he has some good points on this.
I'll just get what she's saying. She's basically saying that it's easier for a woman to get a man than it is for a man to get a woman. That's basically what she's saying, because women at the end of the day, there'll always be like the burden on men to try to find a woman that they can reproduce with, whereas women typically have men who just throw themselves at them, who
Right.
aren't desirable. Like, it's not reciprocal. I get what she's saying. I think there is some merit to that.
And Andrew, I've heard your arguments on this before. If I can kind of prompt you, so you've argued that while it is the case that there are these men, when it comes to hypergamy, there are these men who kind of create the homemakers, as I guess they're called.
Yeah,
that's
but
a
let me dive into this real quick because I want to make sure I understand the argument correctly by steelmanning it. If I heard you correctly, you said that it's because men are ugly, and so I think to steelman this correctly, you're saying that women find men less attractive than men find women, correct?
Yes.
Because men are mostly ugly and women are mostly not ugly.
So
From the perception of the sex, right?
it's not only that, also just men have a higher sex drive, from my
Got
understanding.
it.
They will
So then,
any.
so then you would say that hypergamy is nature, not social.
Yeah, I do think it's natural.
So then how come it was when thousands of years ago, when there was no beauty standards whatsoever, before there was civilization, would you say that hypergamy existed then?
There was less options then. I think anybody who
There
had-
wasn't less options. There was the same amount of options, right?
It's not true.
Why would
What do
they?
you mean?
Well, I don't. Well, wait a second. I don't understand. If you're a woman in a village, right, pre technology, you're saying hypergamy is part of female nature, isn't it?
But only if you can express it, right? If you don't have options, then
Yeah,
there's
but
no
then the females were just as heinous as the men. So why were the females still going for that top tier of men, according to our archaeological records?
If you have options, men and women will both be hypergamous if they have a few options.
Yeah,
That's just
demonstrate it.
human nature. What do you
Demonstrate
mean
it. Yeah, can you give me the proof though, of that claim that if the options are there, they're both.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so back to this question of hypergamy. Before there was these beauty standards which existed pre what you would consider civilization, why do we still see that hypergamy is a matter of the record, that women still went for this top percentile of men? What's that?
And it's human nature.
Well, then it
to be
can't be because men are ugly then.
a top 1%er, right? A guy who's like the alpha guy who can have all the girls he wants. He is also hypergamous,
Then
right?
it can't be because men are ugly and women are pretty. If the pre-beauty standards, they were both ugly and had bad hygiene. Women weren't shaving their arm. Hang on. Women weren't shaving their armpits. They weren't plucking fucking mustaches. They weren't going and getting fake titties. They weren't going and getting all that bullshit. So why were they still going for them if the argument is that men are just fucking ugly?
Beauty standards are relative, right? Like what we consider beautiful today is obviously not going to be what they consider.
Oh yeah,
beautiful.
the men back then, 10,000 years ago, wanted women with mustaches. That was that they were into that.
I'm not saying. Well, I mean, I just think it was probably more the standard. I don't think most women were shaving.
Right, they weren't. So they were equally as ugly, and yet they still went for those men. So this destroys your entire argument. If you're saying it's just nature, then wouldn't matter if the men were better looking than the women.
Men will f anything, and women will not.
Then it has nothing to do with the beauty standard, does it? So your argument that it's because men are ugly was a stupid fucking argument, wasn't it?
Well, it's that if the beauty standard is relative, right? And a woman has options back 5 million years ago when cavemans were still around or whatever the hell, and she's looking, she's going to choose the best option for her, the man that's most attractive to her. If you want to compare that man to today, sure, I bet he's ugly, but back in the time he wasn't.
I got a question.
Are you saying that back in the time that these women with, armpit hair, body hair all over the place smelled just as bad as the fucking men, had no beauty standards whatsoever? They didn't have the fake titties. They didn't have any of that. The rigors of the day also affected them as much as the men. I would say, if you look at the archaeological record, these women were not better looking than the men of the time. They were just as hairy and gross as they are. So the question is, why would you, if they're still going for this top percentile of the alpha, who's this big, ugly ape, why is it that you then think, if that's part of the nature, that now in modernity, what's happened is men just won't upkeep the beauty standard, even though the historic record is against you on this?
Well, the historic record is because women had to get married to men.
No, they
Right,
didn't
we need-
have to get married to men.
Right.
They weren't.
They were
In
always-
pre-civilization, were they even really getting married? Or was it just, unga boonga, come over here to my cave?
I mean, if you're talking that far back, it's like we could even argue whether, like, what their language was, because they're Ooga Booga. Like, I don't know how much they were able to understand. So, like, I don't even know.
Well,
like,
okay, recorded civilization is about 10,000 years old, roughly. Okay, Homo sapiens have not changed in 10,000 years at all. I mean, at all. Evolution is such a long, elongated period of time that 10,000 years is a blink. So we were basically in the exact same form we're in right now, hang on, stop, let me finish. Pre-civilization, we were still in the same form we're in right now, except that women couldn't pluck their eyebrows and shave their armpits and get fake boobs and all this bullshit. They were pretty hideous. They were as hideous as the men were, and yet they were still going for that top percentage.
Historically, women were always trying to be attractive. Maybe they didn't get fake tits and put on makeup because it didn't exist, but they would do it in other ways.
Like?
Like their outfits. Yes, there is.
Their outfits?
They had makeup. Yes, they had other
They wore
forms of
whatever the
makeup
was around, lady.
and stuff. Okay, but that's how it developed.
You're
though.
talking more like
Wait, speaking of which, you said you take an issue with men's problems with makeup is really just rooted in insecurity most of the time. What do you mean by that?
I mean, I think they have a fair complaint when like a woman cakes it on way too much and like looks completely different. But for the most part, like if she's just putting on foundation and like just enhancing her features, and not,
natural
like,
makeup.
Yeah.
So you think it's insecure for a man to prefer a woman who wears minimal or no
No, I
makeup?
think a lot of the reason why men say, "Oh, I prefer a woman with no makeup," is because they know when a girl puts on makeup, she looks prettier, and then like
Yeah.
they feel like she's more out of their
That
league.
makes no sense
Think that's
whatsoever.
Yeah, that's
true.
that don't mean no damn shit.
Everybody
Yeah,
got
because
their own
I don't even
theory.
disagree.
I don't even wear
Because I look the
foundation.
same without makeup, period. So it don't really make me look
Yes.
any
Why do
kind
you
better.
put
But
makeup
like,
on?
They
because I
were-
want to feel myself. That's all.
Women were
Because
beauty
it
maxing.
enhances your beauty.
Yeah, it
12,000
enhances
years
my beauty,
ago,
but
they
I'm
were
not saying
beauty
without
mags.
makeup, like, my
They were
skin
rubbing
feels
bird
like,
on their
skin
eyes.
It's a hobby. At the same time, if you like to do makeup, you just do your.
It shouldn't
makeup.
be an issue.
I don't think
Women
that got nothing
don't-
to do with men though. Some men just prefer women that don't wear
Go ahead.
makeup.
No, women don't put makeup on for men. They do it for themselves. Like
No. Women used to 12,000 years ago. They would wear the right type of bear skin in order to bring in their mate, and they would rub dirt on their face, I guess. And
Donated $69. There is evidence of makeup being in use greater than 10,000 years ago. Women have always wanted the top men and have competed for it.
who cares? This is still not a widespread phenomenon. One, and the archaeological records show that women were heinous. Over 10,000 years ago. For instance, they didn't have tampons and Tampax, and they didn't have feminine hygiene products, and they would walk around free bleeding in bear skins, and they stunk. They smelled awful, and they were still
did.
going for that top tier, weren't they?
you a true fact. I've been a cosmetologist for almost 19 years now. Okay, I've been doing hair. Now, back then,
Say so NZ donated $69. Ugly men is a bad way to phrase it. Men are statistically attracted to a far higher percent of women than women to men. This lets women have more options.
Yeah, I agree.
so
Well put.
women
Well put.
back then when he's saying women and men were equally ugly, he's not lying because women didn't even wash their hair for weeks and months at a time. They would keep it up in a bun because they couldn't just wash it like we wash our hair here. Like now we have more what's the word that I'm looking for? Opportunities to stay clean and stay hygienic. And like in Egyptian era of Cleopatra, they broke up like it was
I
women
didn't say
that
2,000
wore
years,
makeup
Doc.
and that made
I said
makeup was
10,000
actually
years.
the
Pre-civilization. They were still going for the top ones, right?
Staple of
So they're
how
still
much
going to
money
the top
you
ones, and
had.
they're
It
all
wasn't,
heinous. Then it must
"Oh,
not be
we're
the
gonna go
heinous
out and
part,
do our
right?
makeup because we're the poor class. No, the poor class didn't do anything. They stunk. They didn't brush their teeth. They didn't do their makeup or hair. They looked ugly and still got banged by random men.
Hypergamy wasn't about looks. That's why.
Exactly.
Hypergamy wasn't about looks.
but
Hypergamy
women care
hypergamy was
about
about
that.
resources and status. So
That's
so
what I was gonna ask.
yeah, hypergamy was about resources and status.
So
It
if
didn't have
that's the
much-
case, and I can agree with you that it is, then it really doesn't have anything to do in modernity either with looks. That's my point.